Hey guys, it's Erica from alittleinsanity.com, and today I'm going to be sharing with you our family's secret recipe for kale chips. These aren't just any kale chips, these are the best kale chips that you have ever tasted. So the great thing about making kale chips is that they appeal to a wide range of people. Raw foodists, people who are trying to transition into more of a whole food eating, and conventional snackers. These kale chips are so good that anybody will eat them. So in order for us to get that creamy coating for our kale chips, we need to soak the nuts and seeds prior to starting this recipe. I'm going to start this recipe off with 1 cup of macadamia nuts. Macadamia nuts are going to give us that creamy consistency to our kale chip mixture. Next up, I have 1/2 cup of raw sunflower seeds. I'm just going to dump that in the bowl as well. 1/4 cup of raw cashews. 1/4 cup of sesame seeds. Next up, we're going to add 5 to 7 sun-dried tomatoes. The cool thing about sun-dried tomatoes is that they add that smoky barbecue flavor to the chips. Since these have been dehydrated, you're going to want to go ahead and soak these sun-dried tomatoes with your nuts and seeds. In they go. So the last ingredient to be soaked is our 4-pitted dates. Dates add the perfect amount of sweetness to this recipe. Once you have your bowl full of the ingredients that need to be soaked, you're going to just take some filtered water and pour just enough to cover the top of the ingredients. It took just less than a cup of water to cover all of our soaked ingredients. For the creamiest and best results, you should really let these nuts and seeds soak for about a ½ hour to 1 hour before starting the rest of your recipe. While the nuts are soaking, this is the best time to prepare the other ingredients for the kale chips. For this kale chip recipe, you're going to need 4 leafy green kale heads, washed and stripped from the vein. So this type of green leafy kale has a very thick stalk or vein running down the middle of it. Since this doesn't dehydrate very well, we're going to strip the leaves from the vein. The best way to devein a piece of kale is to simply turn it over, grasp firmly at the end of the stalk with your thumb and forefinger, and slide up with your other hand, removing the leaves from the vein. You can go ahead and set this vein aside since we won't be using it for this recipe. Just break this apart into nice sized pieces of kale chips. So this would be a really good size to go ahead and tear your kale chips into. Continue breaking them apart until you've done all 4 heads of kale. So once you have your kale all deveined and torn into the right size pieces, we're going to set them aside in a bowl so that we can prepare the mixture that they'll be dipped into. We're going to start by throwing in 1 carrot that's been washed and peeled. Next, we're going to add 1 stalk of celery that's been washed. We're going to add 1/2 sweet onion. Next up is 1/4 cup of olive oil. 3 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. 2 tablespoons of Bragg's amino acids. 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. Okay, we're going to stop real quickly and give these ingredients a blend. Secure the top on your VitaMix. So we're going to start by just turning the machine on, starting at variable speed 1, bumping it up to 10, just letting these to chop up a little bit before we add the final ingredient. You can use your tamper if need be. Go ahead and set the tamper aside because you're going to be needing it again. So we're ready to add our soaked ingredients. In this case, you will not be draining off the water that you used to soak it. We're going to go ahead and add that to our mixture in the VitaMix. So pop the lid back on your VitaMix. We're going to give this mixture a quick blend. Okay, it's time to add our last 3 ingredients. 1 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. This is just enough to give the kale chips a little kick, but if you want more, please feel free to season it to taste. We're going to be adding in 1 cup of nutritional yeast. Nutritional yeast is not only nutritional, but it tastes delicious and can give these chips sort of a creamy, cheesy consistency. Since the nutritional yeast is so dry, it's going to suck up a lot of moisture in our mixture. Be sure to keep on hand some extra filtered water so that way we can add it to the mixture as needed. Secure the lid on your VitaMix, remove the cap, and go ahead and put the tamper in. We're going to start by turning the machine on, variable speed 1, working our way up to 10, and then on to high, adding water as needed. so it's coming along perfectly, but the mixture's still a little thick. So I'm gonna add just about a 1/4 cup of water to see if we can't thin the mixture out just ever so slightly. Okay, I'm gonna return the cap to my VitaMix and do it again. Perfect. So here's a close-up of the consistency we're looking for, something that's not too thick and not too runny. Now that our mixture's done, we're going to use the kale that we prepared to make the kale chips. I'll be using my favorite Excalibur dehydrator to make the kale chips, using the mesh screen and the Paraflex non-stick liner. To get started, we're just going to pour about 1 cup of the mixture into the bowl. This is a special family technique that I'm going to show you. Using your spatula, you're going to take and you're going to actually just line the sides and the bottom of the bowl with the mixture. So once the sides and the bottom have been coated, I add in a couple handfuls of the kale leaves. Take your spatula and begin stirring. So the idea is to coat each leaf generously and evenly. So here's an example of what your kale leaf will look like after it's been coated. Okay, now we're just going to line the dehydrator trays with the kale chips. So the great thing about kale is that it's a very hardy leaf that can withstand the moisture of the mixture and will dehydrate crispy and crunchy. And repeat the process until all of the mixture and kale leaves have been used. So once my kale chips are loaded up, I slide the trays into my dehydrator, put the lid back on. I set the temperature for 125 for about 1 hour to 2 hours to give it a head start on dehydrating the moisture out of the chips, reducing the heat to 115 and letting it dehydrate for approximately 20 to 24 hours until the kale chips are very crispy. You want to be sure that the kale chips are dried thoroughly before removing them from the dehydrator. And trust me, the time it takes for these guys is well worth the wait. If you have any of the wet mixture left over, go ahead and store it in an airtight container in the refrigerator for 3 or 4 days, and you can always use it again to make more kale chips. Okay, it's been just about 20 hours since I put the kale chips. We're gonna check on their progress. Okay, so they're done and they look great. One of the best ways that you can tell when your kale chips are done are when they are completely dry. There will be no moisture in them at all. The other way that you can tell is that they will break apart very easily in your hand. And here's a close-up of what one of the chips will look like. So the best way to store kale chips is in an airtight container or in a Ziploc baggie in your refrigerator for up to 1 to 2 weeks. If you have a food sealer, you can also seal them that way and they will last much longer. A batch size that we just made will fill up 4 to 5 dehydrator trays and approximately 4 gallon-sized Ziploc bags. So I hope you guys enjoy this kale chip recipe as much as our family does. If you have any questions about the recipe or about the tools and ingredients that I've used, please feel free to leave me a comment down here on YouTube or over at the website at alittleinsanity.com. Hope you guys have a great day. God bless. Goodbye. So for those of you that might be wondering whether or not you can get your own children to eat whole and raw foods, just check out JT, our 1-year-old who loves these things. Bye-bye.